So I think this has been, for about 100 years, this was a butcher's shop. And then in the mid to late 80s, the shop closed down, and the property was actually converted into a house. And I think it was a house for a couple of years before a local businessman decided to open it up as a wine shop, which he ran for a few years with his wife. There was another couple after them, and then my boss bought the business in 1991, I think it was, and I think so it's our 25th anniversary in 2016, and it's been a wine shop ever since. I've always been very interested in wine. We've always been a family that would always drink wine with meals. My parents were not afraid to give us a small amount of wine with meals, and so we were always introduced to sort of sensibly drinking wine with food mainly. Later on I got sort of older and more involved. I was at the University Tasting Society, which was quite good fun, and from there really my passion's grown. I mean, it's a massive subject. There's so many things to try, there's so many things to taste. They're all different from different countries, and there's just a massive world of wine out there to explore. Good afternoon, Fareham Wine Cellar, Dominic speaking. How can we help you? When I started here 20 years ago, of course, there was no real internet. We didn't have a website. We still were making sandwiches. We had a sort of a small catering business for some of the local businesses, offices in the high street here. That's all since long gone. We're far busier selling wine now. The website is now very important to us. We send out wine all over the country, and indeed all over Europe and the rest of the world from our website. So those are the main changes, is the growth of the internet really, I would say. And you know, just more people seem to be interested in better wines. So what makes us unique, I guess, is we have a hand-selected selection of wines. Many of them are made in really tiny quantities. There's certainly ones that you won't find in the supermarkets, and our customers tend to be people that are searching out for something a little bit different, or something better than the supermarkets. Perhaps they've done all the wines in the supermarkets, or they are finding the quality's not there anymore, but they're people probably trading up a bit. We don't sell many wines under £10 anymore, but there's still lots of people willing to spend that sort of money on a bottle of wine. But yeah, it's people looking for unusual, different wines, wines from small producers, wines with a story, that sort of thing, and of course high quality. We're one of the very few wine merchants with this sort of selection. There's certainly no others along the south coast that I can think of, and no one close to us. We've got a massive selection here, a real labour of love controlling it. There's probably over 1,500 different lines of wines, the spirits as well, ports, Madeiras, all sorts of things, and of course we haven't just got one bottle of each. We've got cases of each in some cases, so there is an awful lot of wine here, as you can probably see. It can be a difficult thing to manage, but like I said, it's got to be done. We're one of the last. We've got a wide range of wines. I mean, from the real classics, you know, Bordeaux, Burgundies, Riojas, through to wines from every country, modern wines, more classic wines from California, Argentina, but we've got some very fun modern wines as well. Really funky labels, such as the wines from some young punks from Australia. It's a group of 3 young winemakers. They don't own any vineyards, but they buy parcels of grapes from various growers and then blend them together to make what you see here. Things like the Passion Has Red Lips, the Naked on roller skates, and then they do this fantastic branding. Both those bottles, the labels are actually covers of real Pulp Fiction novels from the 1950s and 60s. They also make some other really interesting blends where they were blending sort of Australian Italian blend. So you've got the Double Love Trouble, which is I think a Nebbiolo Cabernet blend, and the Squid's Fist, which I think is Sangiovese Shiraz. So blending sort of great varieties that normally you would find in Italy with Australian ones, and again giving them funky labels which they've had commissioned for that range of wines. But yeah, they're certainly some of the most eye-catching wines we've got, and people always can't resist picking them up and talking about them. Certainly the Quickie sort of causes people to double take. When we first saw the wines, we thought, that's a bit gimmicky. We were pretty unsure. We thought, are they like Cat's Pionegas, Rebus or Fat Bastard or any of those sort of gimmicky named wines and things like that? But then we actually tried the wines, and luckily the quality of the wine actually stacks up. So I think if you're going to do these sort of funky labels and sort of announce yourself to the world that you're sort of a modern funky wine brand, you've really got to be able to the quality of the wine's really got to stack up, otherwise it doesn't look good. And luckily the quality of the wine in these funky bottles is good. The Some Young Punks wines are only made in tiny quantities. I know some of them, literally there are only a couple of hundred cases for the UK of some of the ones that they make. So they're not the sort of thing that you will find in the multiples supermarkets. You will find them in other smaller independent wine merchants around the country like ourselves. Another wine that we have with a really interesting label is the Marilyn Merlot, which is officially licensed by Marilyn Monroe's estate. Each year the label has a different picture of Marilyn Monroe on it. It becomes very collectible. I'm sure lots of people don't ever open their bottles of Marilyn Merlot, but it's a superb wine, really nice Napa Valley Merlot from California, and not overpriced. You know, some of the Californian wines can be, and it's great to be finally able to get this again. It's actually been unavailable in the UK and I think the whole of the EU for a number of years, because there was a dispute over the trademarking of Marilyn Merlot, and I think someone in France had actually trademarked the term Marilyn Merlot, so it was unavailable. But just before, in the last couple of months, we've managed to get hold of some, so I assume that's all settled now. And it's a great wine, great for collectors, and the labels are fantastic. I mean, what's not to like about a bottle of wine with Marilyn Merlot on the Monroe on the label? It's a big, rich, kind of plummy Merlot, lots of big, ripe red fruits, but not overripe, but plummy and soft, not too sweet, not too jammy like some of the Californian wines can be, but yeah, a superb Merlot. A lot of people just collect it for the label and perhaps never even drink it. Yeah, that happens to a certain extent for sort of collectible wines like that, but it mainly happens more at the top end, you know, first and second growth clarets, Bordeaux, things like Mouton, Rothschild, Lafite, Margaux. They're wines that these days, unfortunately, tend to be just bought and sold. I mean, some people might buy it en primeur, keep it in a bonded warehouse, never ever see it, it gets sold on to another merchant, and yeah, literally, it's a commodity. Over the years, marketing and labelling and presentation has become a lot more important, I think. Sort of going back a few years, there were some shocking wine labels, and there still are, in fact. But at the end of the day, people can see past a wine label. If the wine is good, it's high quality, and the value for money is there, people are quite happy to ignore all the branding, and they will buy a really good wine with a really bad label. But equally, branding does work. People will buy wines with good labels that aren't perhaps quite so good. Of course, you won't find any of those here. We also stock some of the local wines. We have red and white wines from Titchfield Vineyard, which is just down the road. We also have some of the fantastic sparkling wines from Hambledon Vineyard and Meehan Hill. I don't know, I suspect many of you have been following the press recently, but they've had some really good write-ups. Hambledon came top of a blind tasting the other day, beating Nye Timber, Paul Roger and Tatinter Champagne. The Meehan Hill Brut has been chosen as the sparkling wine on Virgin Upper Class. They are excellent quality sparkling wines, as good as most champagnes. So over recent years, English sparkling wine has really taken off as well. the French have been, the Champenois have been sniffing around Hampshire and Sussex of recent years looking for places to plant vines. Tattinger have just bought an old apple orchard in Kent, which they're going to replant with vines. They'll be coming on stream in about 4 or 5 years' time. But at the moment we have some superb ones from our 2 local producers, Hambledon Vineyard and Meehan Hill. Both really high quality producers. Hambledon has got probably one of the most modern wineries in the UK. It's gravity fed winery, so everything in the winery is the wine and the grapes all move through the winery under their own steam. And some people say this is a much gentler process and produces a much more a wine which is much more untainted by being pumped through pumps and things like that under pressure. We're very lucky here that the South Downs, which are chalky, is actually part of the same bit of chalk that goes all the way down through Hampshire, Sussex, Kent, the cliffs of Dover, and all the way down through Champagne. It's all the same bit of chalk. So we have extremely similar soils. We have pretty similar weather to Champagne, if a little bit cooler, but you don't need overripe grapes for sparkling wine, because you tend to add a bit of sugar during the dosage, which is during the manufacturing process. But yeah, I mean, we're very lucky that we've got these guys just down the road from us, and they make superb sparkling wines. One area that's surprised everyone over the last few years is gin. I mean, the sales of gin have gone through the roof, and not only have the sales of gin gone through the roof, but the number of small distilleries that have opened recently have gone through the roof. We've got 3 with a good local connection. There's Twisted Nose from Winchester Distillery. His Twisted Nose dry gin is fantastic. It's made with local Hampshire watercress and Hampshire lavender as part of the botanicals. He also makes a fantastic wasabi vodka from Wasabi, which is grown in Hampshire too, as well as a vermouth, which is really good, which is basically a wine fortified, flavoured with herbs and spices, and it's also made with Hampshire wine as the base. The other new gin with a local connection is Silverback from Gorilla Spirits. They're from Four Marks near Alton. They've got a Mountain Strength gin, which is a really nice gin, bottled at 46%. The other local connection we've got is Chilgrove gin, which is made with water from the South Downs. All of them are superb gins. I think we're lucky that even though they're local, they are really, really good gins. Yes, so 20 years ago, when we didn't have the website, obviously we were relying just on customers through the door. But now, a fair proportion of our business comes from the internet and our website. Certainly, the retail side of things couldn't stand alone. Neither could the website. So they both live and work quite well together. But I spend a lot more of my time in front of the computer these days, updating Facebook, Twitter, writing blog posts. Managing the sort of 2,000 different lines we have takes a lot of time. Keeping vintages and prices up to date, making sure when vintages change, the blend of the grapes in the wine hasn't changed, that sort of thing. And then I have to take pictures of all the products as well, which I then put up on the website. And yeah, it's very time consuming but very worthwhile.